The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
So, Q3 news. PACS released their Road Safety Manifesto, which is the, I struggle with Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety. Yeah. IMTD Awards, which I'm not going to attend because I can never remember what that stands for. They released their awards, one of which some of us tonight, Stewart Lochrie got an award, but also the likes of Ollie Taylor and Kev Tracey. The Part 1 pass rate came out when it was the lowest ever, and I've wrote down 30%. It wasn't 30%, but it was in the 30s somewhere for the lowest ever Part 1 pass rate. We did a whole episode on that, Chris. The DVSA released their latest survey, and I'm not commenting on that. The Expo was in Q3, so very different to the convention. It was the energy that Stuart mentioned before, the Expo. I also released Season 8, which Stuart Bright Coaching was kind enough to sponsor again, and Season 8 was somewhat a bit different. It was the In Conversation with season where we have Laura Morris, and I mentioned that specifically because it was one of the most fun things I've ever done, and I've got some more plans that should be interesting. And I'm mentioning this purely because it amused me greatly, because it's led me to the greatest question I ever asked on the green room, because Q3, the DVSA released their annual report. And it led me to this question, because in the report, Loveday Riders said that reducing waiting times will be a priority for the DVSA in 2025. So I asked Chris, do you think it was worth waiting until 2025 to make it a priority? Which I think is the greatest question that's ever been asked on the green room. So that is the news from Q3. I'm going to come to you first with this one, Stuart, I think, because with the PACS thing, the PACS Road Safety Manifesto, so I'm hoping you can talk to us a little bit about the involvement the NJC have with PACS and talk a little bit about around that, and touch on anything else you may want to within that news.
Yeah, sure. So PACS, there's probably not a lot of people know about PACS in the industry. It's a very kind of niche thing, I guess. Interests me greatly for one reason in particular, and that is that PACS is not the DVSA. PACS, Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety, they don't just do road safety, they do rail safety, they do shipping safety, air safety, all this kind of thing. But they are advisors to the Houses of Parliament. They lobby when required. They advise Department for Transport on various kind of things, and they've got all sorts of experts who work with them. Where I see a role for the ADI-NJC linking in with PACS in terms of we're now members of PACS, which means that we can go along to meetings. In particular, there's a working party called the Road User Behaviour Working Party, I think it's called, chaired by Professor David Crundle, who I know that you guys will know. And that's something that has been going on for many, many years. But there are no driving instructors in that room. There are no associations in that room. And this is like a recurring theme for me. Wherever I look outside of the industry, whether it's Road Safety GB or, young driver focus conferences or various other kind of road safety, and I'm sure you'll chime in with this as well, Terry, they were just not there. We're not included. We're quite often seen as not part of that road safety community. So joining PACS is a way of kind of hoping to build another bridge in a different direction, because if I can be cynical for a minute, I don't believe that the DVSA has what it takes to change the industry in the way that I would like to see it changed in terms of upskilling driver instructors, redoing the qualification Part 3 and all that kind of stuff. So if we want it to be changed in a way that, if we want to play our part in moulding the way that it's changed, we need to be in rooms like that as an association, as industry leaders and all that kind of thing. So that's hugely exciting for me personally. I'm hoping that other people are as excited in the NJC as I am. That's kind of my job to kind of sell that, I guess. But they were also hugely influential recently. Was it the second part of the year with the you're going to have to remind me what it was called, the manifesto, the Road Safety Manifesto?
Yeah.
And calling for graduated driver licensing. I've got some issues with GDL, which I'll come on to a little bit later, but just that kind of their ability to launch campaigns, their ability to get eyeballs on campaigns, and their ability to influence and get points of view across the Department for Transport is something that we should be paying attention to if we are interested in positive change. And if we're interested in, let me put that a little bit more basic, if we're interested in getting some primary legislation at some point that makes things better, because the DVSA cannot change legislation. So yeah, that's what I'm interested in with PACTs. Very excited about it.
I am. And, maybe it's a sign of the industry we're in. But I do think it's exciting, the fact that the NJC have become part of PACTs or a member of PACTs. And I can remember when I found out, just being very excited about that on the green room. We're shouting about that. And I just think that, as you said, it's bridging the gap between instructors and the road safety sector. And this is a massive part of the road safety sector. It's an official part, if you like, and there's not many official parts. So for the NJC to be part of that and have a say and be able to put across a different perspective that no one else in the room will be able to put across, that of a driving instructor, I think is huge. And I do not think that can be underestimated. So yeah, was that your kind of spearheading to get into that, Stewart?
Yeah, I kind of pressed for it with the NGC. We're obviously a committee. As you know, we're a governing committee. I feel like I kind of had to make my case to the governing committee and explain to the governing committee why I thought it was important. I couldn't, it was actually, it's a bit kind of the intricacies of how the governing committee works. I couldn't propose that the ADI NGC joined PACTs until I was sure that everyone on the governing committee was in support of that road safety manifesto. So it actually took quite a long time to kind of get through, because we had to have a talk about GDL, which is the main kind of thing in that road safety manifesto. So that was not always straightforward, because, people have feels about that, about GDL. But yeah, we went through that process first, and then from there it was fairly straightforward we had to ask Peter for some money, he's the treasurer, to join, but then from there it was okay.
I do want to move on, but I want to just ask you a question about that, because it hurt my attention slightly when you say that the GDL was the main part of that manifesto. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, because to me I can't remember them all, but there was 4 points on there, one of which was creating a road safety strategy. I would have interpreted that was the main point of it. But so when you're saying the GDL is the main point, what do you mean?
Yeah, I maybe didn't describe that well enough. If any organisation is going to sign that road safety manifesto, GDL would be the main sticking point for a lot of people. So many people would have been quite easily on board with the other three. GDL for a lot of people is a sticking point. It's a slightly controversial one on there, maybe.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I get you. Tom, I want to come on to you then, because I want to ask you about the DVSA survey that they do every year. That one that they put out, everyone answers and then they do what they want anyway. Maybe I've loaded the question there slightly. What are your thoughts on the survey, and when it comes around next year, should people be bothering to fill it in?
Oh, yeah, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think if you're happy to waste your time doing it, then yeah, great. Yes, I did. I do it every year. And I have that little glimmer of hope, because I try and look at the positives for everything, that perhaps this will be the year where they think, actually, Chris and Stewart got a really good point here, and Terry says some really good things. Perhaps we will listen to them. But, maybe it's 2025. Who knows? But I think, for me, we shouldn't really be allowed to sit and moan about things if we're not actually going to do something about it, which, again, kind of links to what Stuart's saying about, us as the NJC and the industry joining PACs and doing more for road safety. We can all sit behind Facebook profiles and moan about things, which is easy. So I would suggest everybody does the quiz. It wasn't a quiz. Do the survey. Yeah, you can look at it as a quiz if you want. It might be a bit more interesting. So yeah, I think people should do it, even though DVSA might not pay too much of attention. But I'm definitely moving more and more to, I think, lots of other people in the way that they're thinking. Why should we wait for DVSA to start moving our industry forward when we've actually got the power to do it? And I think with all the things that we've said, with what the associations are doing, having younger people coming into the industry, that more people are working together, I do think we've got that ability in the not so distant future to actually pull together to make a big difference. And that's not just for us, but for road safety. I just hope that everybody keeps the momentum going, really.
I think quiz is a good word, because you can play it by guessing as to what the DVSA want you to answer. And then what they do as a result of that, you can decide whether you've answered correctly or not.
Mm.
Is it really a survey, or is it just data mining? Do you know?
Data mining, innit? They want to know how many students you've got and how long is your waiting list and all that kind of stuff. But I do think we should do it. I think at the very least, I mean, just imagine the slight difference if you've got 95% of instructors that are filled in. You then can go back to them with something, but when it's only, 12% that filled in the last one? You've got 12%. It's difficult then to go back and challenge anything they say. So even when they go completely against an answer, so 75% of instructors vote for this thing, and then the DVA say do something else, they can say, yes, but 80% of you didn't fill it in, so what do they want? But yeah, anyway.
I think it'd be quite interesting to have a survey that was put out by NASP and that somebody helped us put together so that it's like psychological. Let's box and NASP. Let's see how many responses we can get from a kind of all-member survey about road safety and behaviour and CPD and all that kind of stuff. That'd be far more useful, I think, than what Jimmy's charging in Bolton. Do you know?
If only we knew someone that was a key member of NASP.
Yeah.
On a slightly different note, there will be the Instructor Podcast survey out early on in the new year, so make sure you're checking out that and filling that in for my data mining exploits. Chris, I want to come on to you because I do just want to touch on this. We did do an episode on it, but I think it's right to reflect. The Part 1 pass rate being the lowest it's ever been.
Yes.
Is that Chris's fault? Is that what you're...
Yeah. Yes. Why have you done this? You're in charge of theory for our industry.
There's a solution. Everyone comes to me for 2 hours and then they go and pass it. So the biggest issue with all of the theory, it doesn't matter whether it's Part 1 or whether it's the L test, the biggest issue with all the theory is DVSA have got 2 departments. They've only got 2. No, they've got 2 departments that deal with the theory questions. One of which deals with the revision questions, which got separated from the test questions in 2012. And then the test engine department that write the questions for the actual test. They don't talk to each other. So I raised this as a problem. Apparently, it's probably going to be a year before they've resolved the problem because you can't just phone someone or arrange a meeting. But that's the biggest problem that we face, that if you imagine that Terry and myself stood in the middle of the country in 2012 and we started walking in opposite directions and we kept walking in opposite directions until now, we'd be a fair way away from each other. So the revision questions don't reflect the questions on the actual test. The Part 1 questions are worse than all of the other questions. The section that everybody fails on, which is Band 4, which is the bit that's surprisingly the bit that they haven't ever done before. So the bit that's about driving and driving practice and that side of it has got the most questions in it. Band 4 has got the least questions, and it's the section that people have done the least about. And most people, the majority, decide to go and take the Part 1 test without reading the books. So where are you going to find your information from? Because it isn't in the bloody revision questions. You could try Theory Test Explained if you want. So, but the books are there. They're there to be used. And it's that section that catches people out pretty much every time. If it's not that section, go back and do your L test revision first, because that will help, because you've got an issue with your driving knowledge. That's the other side of it. But nearly always it's Band 4. And you didn't fail by 1. You've failed by more than 1. You've got some work to do on that bit, and I will happily help if you want me to. I'm not being negative about you, being negative about the process, because it's not actually the PDI's fault. It's the DVSA's fault because of the lack of information that is provided on how to learn, because they've always gone, that's not our job. We do the testing. But if you are the first port of call and you're where they sign up to the register, it's your job to give them that information. And it's the training providers. Generally, most of my bullets go in the direction of the national training providers that just want to take lots of money and have absolutely no regulation over them by the DVSA, and that needs to change. But I haven't got a very strong opinion about it, if I'm honest.
I reckon if me and you stood in the middle of the country in 2012 and walked apart, by the time we got to now, I would still know what you were thinking and you would still disagree with everything I said.
I don't disagree with everything you said.
No, you just give me a different answer to the question I asked you. Although you did answer that one, so that was good. But no, I think you're right. And I do think the bulk of it falls upon the trainer. And do you know what? I wonder how much of it, and I may have asked you this before, but I wonder how much of it just is culture. When you think of you taking your theory for your driving test,
the theory is a gateway to the driving test. That's the only reason 90% of the population do it, just to get it out of the way so they can book a driving test. Does it potentially start there with that culture when you then come to your theory for the part one?
Yeah, and I think it also is from an instructor's perspective. Sean Hellman, the DIA conference, was talking about the fact that we've got one of the best hazard perceptions in the world, and it works really well. And the figures show, this was news to me, the figures support the fact that the stronger your score is on the hazard perception, the safer you're going to be on the road afterwards. And there's statistics that back that up. So when we go in to do it as instructors, it's not designed for us. It's designed for learner drivers, new drivers that are coming in whose brains need to be trained that, if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And then they can start to spot hazards. Well, they're obvious to us. You can't see it through the eyes of a learner. It doesn't work. So as a trainee instructor, you go in and probably fail the hazard perception because you're ignoring stuff and it's not tuned to you. So when you then get learners coming through, you're going to be dismissing the hazard perception all the way through. And as I had the opportunity to say at the conference in December, there's a juxtaposition between the multiple choice questions and the hazard perception. In the problem we've got with the multiple choices that we're learning by rote, and that's what we need to fix. What we need to be doing for the hazard perception is teaching by rote. And firstly, saying how many cyclists can you see today and get them spotting them. And then how many tractors can you see today, which could be, interesting in the middle of London or whatever. But it depends if there's a protest on, doesn't it really? So, if you've got that going on, you get them spotting it and then you start saying, what's it going to do next? And you do that prediction bit, then hopefully that works. But they're different tests for a reason. They work differently. And we're not very good at it.
I like ducks, though. I like that you mentioned ducks. Anyway, I'm going to stick with you because I'm going to ask you the question. What disappointed you about our industry in 2024?
That sounded like a quacker joke. So I could not. Sorry, it's been Christmas.
You could have not.
But it's been Christmas. I've got my Christmas shirt on, especially. What was the question?
What's disappointed you about our industry in 2024?
The DVSA. So the lack of regulation, and this isn't the individuals at the DVSA's fault, right? I get that. They are hands tied by the legislation or lack of it. It seems to work both ways. And the fact that they are effectively the dinosaur of the government that was pushed out on a limb because it worked really well until the world changed and they couldn't adapt. So the lack of legislation over training providers, there isn't any. It only comes down to, if you've got a problem, you've got to go and talk to trading standards, who equally don't have much power over how it's done. The audit issue of, do we want audit? No, we don't want audit, but we can't say no, we don't want audit, or we won't have whatever we want because we want them to replace audit. So you can't answer that question because they're trying to trap us in a corner. They either get rid of it totally or bring back exactly what we didn't want in the first place. That one works well. And then the final thing on a very long list for me, and I'll skip the bits in the middle, is the total inability to complain about the DVSA, because every time you do, it ends up on the desk of Loveday Ryder, so she can deal with the complaint about her. It's not her, it's the DVSA. I want to be able to complain about them to someone because I want change, and they want change as well. This is the thing. We're fighting for the same thing, but from opposite directions. Yeah, that I really hoped that through necessity we would find change, and no, we haven't. We bolstered everything as instructors. And instructors have held up the whole of the driver training world with all of the issues that were there. Yes, they've put tests out there and had people delivering tests. That's what they do. We've had to juggle 20 different balls at once, and I'm really glad I'm not out on the road doing it, and massive respect to those that are continuing to do so.
It's interesting because
as you were going through that, I'm sat here thinking, how can this disappoint you? Because surely you expected this. Because I wasn't disappointed by DVSA because they've done exactly what I expected them to do this year. I think the only thing that disappointed me, I think it was in the report where they said they've been surprised by the booking, the way that the booking changes have been done. I'm like, how has that surprised you? It's been done for 3 years. But I think I wasn't expecting anything. But then at the end, you said you were just hoping through necessity there'd be change. Is that where that disappointment's come from? Is it the fact that you really hoped there would be a change?
No, I'm an absolute mug, and I have done what I know lots of other people, including Stewart and Tom do it, which is sit in rooms with, DVSA or whoever it might be, DFT, and listen to the promises and the want for change and everything else. And every time, like the kid that's nearly too old for Christmas, who gets to Christmas and absolutely buys into it all again, not just because of presents, but because it's magic and it takes over and all the year of going, is it or isn't it? And I'm not saying it out loud because I refuse to. There's that moment you get there and you buy into it again. And I do it every bloody time. And I got an email just before Christmas, we're interested in what you have to say. Can we have a meeting with you from Loveday Rider? And I got slightly excited about them listening again. And the voice in the back of my head is going, you idiot. You've been here before. The listening and doing something totally different. Or doing what they would have done anyway. Or, and again, DIA conference in December, DVSA were there in force, conveniently after they'd had the big government review thing going on. They needed to be, I think. But, it was brilliant that they were. And again, the individuals were awesome. John Sheridan, I love the guy. He could, shoot your parents, turn around and apologise for it, and you'd accept it. He's good at it. He's got a silver tongue, and I respect that massively. And he genuinely would be apologetic as well. He means it when he says it. But he was there trying to encourage people to go and sit in the back of test and just say it's free CPD. And David, whose surname I can't remember, who's in charge of ADI enforcement, whatever they're called now, ADI examiners, was saying about the more examiner stock being out there and that they're bringing them in. And there's one on my doorstep, which is great because we had one person covering the whole of the southeast. So those changes and you talk to them and there's lots of positivity. And Nick, the registrar, laughed at me because I suggested that we could actually change something to do with ADI testing. But I think they were quite keen to switch part 1, part 2, potentially, the idea of it. But again, you get legislation thrown back at you. That the willing is there. It's the action that won't happen because there's too many things stood in the way, and they're used to it. It's what they do as a job. They use the language of government and civil servants, and every time I think it's normal English, and then I forget it's double talk, and I end up disappointed. And that's where my disappointment comes from, because it's cost me, out of my own pocket, thousands of I don't want to know how many, thousands of pounds of going along to meetings where, I say, doing it as myself voluntarily. I've been lucky enough to be invited into those rooms. But, paying for the travel and paying for the hotels and all of those things and giving up the time, how much time it is when you take a day out of your diary, you're already on a loss. And every time I think, yes, no, genuinely, there could be something positive out of this. And, mug.
That's the Chris Bensted rant we've been waiting for this episode. It takes a lot to break my spirit. But I think they broke my spirit. I don't think I buy into them anymore. Again, not the individuals. I feel like we always need to tag that on, but the organisation, even just from the perspective of, there's only so many times someone will say, yes, we want to come on the show, and then not come on the show before you finally go, all right, I don't want you on the show anymore. And so, yeah, I think I'm with you, but I think because my spirit was broken, I'm not disappointed because it's exactly what I expected this year. if anything, it's better than I expected. Maybe that says more about me than them. I don't know. Tom, I'm going to come on to you next for this. What's been your biggest disappointment around 2024?
I'm going to keep along the same theme, actually, although I'm going to get a little bit more personal, because I think there are some individuals that have stood out sort of over the last 12 months that we've heard through, not just through the NJC, but also that have contacted me direct. And some of the absolute rubbish that these individuals who are ADI examiners have come out with. Things like, somebody spoke to me recently, she went for her first part 3, and one of the first things the examiner said to her was, "Don't worry, I don't pass anyone on the first go." So, I know generally 95% of ADI examiners that I've met have been absolutely brilliant, but there are some individuals out there who I truly don't think should be either doing the job or need CPD. And I think because there's so much going on, they've sort of been allowed to filter through maybe. And that for me has been one of the disappointing things this year, because I don't know whether I'm just biased now because I'm more aware of it. However, I've seen a bigger increase in some of these comments and misinformation that have been given out. Some things that almost make me want to cry when you hear a PDI or an ADI come back with this information that they've been told, like, throw the GTE matrix away, it's not needed in our industry. All of these just surprise me, but don't surprise me. So I do agree. Majority of, I think, DVSA want to try and do good, but there are a small minority that need additional training. They disappoint me.
See, that to me sounds like people that can't do the job, because I think back, because I think sometimes there's an expectancy for examiners to be a certain way, and it might just not be the most people-y person ever, but they do a fair job. They're just not great. I think back to my standards check, and I've said this before, but I passed, and she said, "On this occasion, you haven't failed." So of course, I just heard the word fail, and when she gave me feedback, I assumed I'd failed. And I went, hold on, I passed. She went, yeah. She said, yeah, I said that. No, you didn't say that. You said I haven't failed. What a horrible way to say it. So she actually conducted the test quite well, and she, graded me what I think was fairly. But that almost like bedside manner of, you haven't failed. But what you're describing there just sounds like incompetence.
And we all know what it's like going for standards check, audit assessments, part 3s. We've all been there, and it's stressful. It's all right for us to sort of sit here with years of experience going, it's fine, it's only 45 minutes, don't worry about it, just go and deliver a good lesson. But it is a stressful time, and to have somebody that you're looking up to at that point to say to you, don't worry, I don't pass anyone on the first go, I think is just atrocious. And we've still got that in the industry where people don't want to rock the boat. There's me saying to these people, no, rock it. Seriously, rock it as much as you can. In fact, we want to topple it over. But people don't want to do that. And it is really disappointing. And I feel genuinely sorry for a lot of these people, because if that was us, if we said something or did something that these individuals didn't agree with, it would be fine. But we put the complaints in, and it's dismissed, or 9 months later it's accepted and they go, fine, we'll just give you another retest. And yeah, but that whole 9 months of stress has been horrible for these people. So why not just have a good, excuse the term, bedside manner and just be nice to people? It's not that difficult, surely.
See, I think that almost is, how can I put it, it's giving people excuses as well, because we've all heard, they won't pass, that example, they won't pass you on the first time. And 99% of examiners won't take that approach. But as soon as one says it, it then breaks that rule. And it's almost giving, I shouldn't use this, but it's almost giving PDIs an excuse. Why should I try for my first time and they're going to fail me anyway? Yeah, no, I don't like that. So, yeah, we've had Chris complain about the DVSA, Tom complain about ADI examiners. Stewart, what's been your biggest disappointment from 2024?
So I thought I had 2, but then Chris and Tom gave me some other ideas, so I now have 42.
Fell
But
down.
we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. But yeah, like sympathies and, I feel you guys completely in many of the things you're talking about there. But my two things that have disappointing, I'm not sure is the right word, frustrated, it made me angry, and probably the one more than the other. But the first one is top 10 reasons for failing driving tests from the DVSA. Has this been done on a podcast episode that I've missed just before we go there? I just don't get it. I really struggle with it on an intellectual level. That why would the DVSA be putting out a webinar about top 10 reasons for failing driving tests? Now, I know the answer to that. I know it's so that they can reduce the test waiting times. That's why they're doing it. But it's just such a stupid thing to do. When the general public are bemoaning the fact that the standard of driving is atrocious, why would you do something that just reinforces the idea that everyone in this industry is teaching people to pass a test? It just goes completely against the grain of, that nonsense that is safe driving for life. Even if it is nonsense, it's your nonsense. At least own your nonsense. Yeah, so top 10 reasons for failing driving tests. Robert, how many people did they get on it? It was...
Not as many as they wanted, because they'd all come and see my version of it, which I did before they did.
I'm sorry, Chris. I didn't know you had something like that. I feel terrible. This is brilliant. I'm sure this is...
I did it because they cancelled at the last minute, and I confidently went, yeah, I can do that. It was actually quite difficult, and I felt like I was treading water. But
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm flagging. I'm sure it was brilliant. It got me. It got me.
I agree with you, which is why I spoke about other things while I was doing it.
I'm sure you did it in a far better way than Divya would have done it. Because for anyone who doesn't get where my anger is coming from, that people don't die because of the reasons that they mark down as driving faults on driving tests. They die because of behavioural issues. I'm just going to come back to, I think it was Chris mentioned something about the DVSA, and it made me think about something else that had made me angry this year. Obviously, I'm quite into behavioural change and the whole kind of RAC report around all the different behavioural change techniques that we have at our disposal that we don't use. We only tell people what to do and we give them information about consequences. And the DVSA came out with something about behavioural change, but they used it in a negative way because they blamed behavioural change of learner drivers on the increases to the test waiting times. It's behavioural change that has caused the test waiting times. That really got my goat as well. But probably the biggest one that got me this year has been GDL. So hope I'm not going to be too controversial around this. I'll try not to be. I think that there is obviously a lot of really solid evidence in favour of graduated driver licensing. I think probably would save lives. I don't have strong enough feelings about it from a kind of social, I'm trying to say, like from a people's liberty perspective and like movement, social movement and all that kind of stuff. I don't have any strong feelings about that either way. What got me angry is the amount of time that's been spent on it as an industry talking about GDL. There was a period in the summer where you couldn't go on a webinar, you couldn't attend a meeting anywhere, but they were spending like an hour or 90 minutes on graduated driver license and just full of hypotheticals. If you do this, then that won't happen. How are the police going to cope? And what about Jimmy, who works late shifts at the pub, which is 6 miles away from his farmhouse and all this kind of stuff? And I'm not going to say that. That's not our job. It's not our job, guy. I say it to camera. It's not our job, right? We don't need to have any more discussions about graduated driver license other than to say, yeah, we think it's probably a good thing. It'll probably save lives. Can we please have it? Yeah. Or, yeah, I think most people would probably say it's a good thing. But we don't need hours and hours and hours of how it would be implemented and how our police force is going to cope. How are they going to manage all this kind of stuff? It's nothing to do with us. The same way we didn't have massive discussions about putting airbags into cars. It had nothing to do with us either. Yeah, GDL. There's so many other things we should be talking about. That's me.
Out of curiosity, how did you feel about sponsoring the episode on GDL on Season?
I loved that episode. I thought it was some of your finest work, Terry. I pissed off you, and I've pissed off.
Well, I'll tell you where I disagree slightly. And I think I agree with like 90% of what you've said regarding the GDL, and there's very little to do with us. But where I disagree slightly, I thought there's 2 points. One is, I think we need to know what it is, the base of it, because I think that I've had students that have come in the car and said, what's this I've heard about GDL? Well, they haven't said GDL. They've said, what's this I've heard about me not being able to drive with my mates after I passed? Now, it's not every student. I feel like driving instructors should be able to give some kind of answer to that and not pour, fuel to the flames of you won't be able to drive with someone in your car for 2 years and all the other nonsense to get spouted. So I think that in terms of knowledge, I think it's good that instructors know so that we can give an actual answer rather than give gossip and hearsay.
You mean rather than just say, I heard a Scottish guy on a podcast and he said it's not our job.
Yeah.
He's saying your way is better.
Yeah.
And I thought...
It's either that or we wait for the DVSA to tell us.
2025, I think.
So, Terry, sorry to interrupt and then go on to your next point. That's a flyer, mate. That's a flyer. That's a flyer in a test centre or a poster in a test centre.
It is, but yes and no, because I'll tell you, so when I had that, I think it was Liz Box. It might not have been Liz Box. I might be forgetting who. The very rare time when I've forgotten who the guest was when we did it. We had someone on season 7 covering that, and it was fascinating. And it was really interesting to find out. So is it a necessity? No. But I go back to Copilot. Copilot's not a necessity, but it's great to be a part of. And I think that we can get his priorities right. I go back to Copilot. I said, what's your priority? Would it be a Bright coaching course? Would it be Copilot? Well, it'll be Bright coaching. What's your priority? Learning how to deliver a better driving lesson or learning what GDL is? Let's deliver a better driving lesson. But I think to say, I don't know if this is putting words in your mouth slightly, but I think to say that we shouldn't know it or shouldn't waste our time on it, I think that's a step too far. I think to know what it is. And I think part of it is because of the amount of crap I hear spouted about it. I think that's the other thing. So, and again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this, but when I hear people say, oh, it can't be policed, it's like, right, so you're talking down this road safety intervention. This is a driving instructor talking down a road safety intervention that you don't need to know loads about, but you could talk up a little bit, or you could, dismiss the fact that it can't be policed. So I think that's where it's useful to know. But I think the other aspect is from promoting of road safety. So again, this is just anecdotal experience, purely anecdotal experience. But when I've spoken about it, I've had, admittedly not many, but I've had parents that have contacted me of students said, what, can you tell me more about this? I didn't realize this was dangerous. I didn't realize these figures. Sharon Huddleston as an example, when she was saying she didn't know this stuff, and if she'd known it, she wouldn't let her daughter get in that car that night. Well, that's something that we can use to put information across on social media, which will help, maybe a little bit, drive that road safety message, drive that road safety message. So I think I agree with the bulk of what you're saying, but I wouldn't go as far as you do and say, do instructors need to know it? No. Is it helpful if we do? Yes. That'd be how I would tackle.
Yeah. I can take that. I can take that pushback. It just, there's stuff that we can do tomorrow that makes a tangible difference. And if we spent a quarter of the time on webinars and meetings talking about that kind of stuff, then GDL, I think we can start making a difference tomorrow. But please don't misunderstand me. I know that you know this, that one of the biggest things you've done is raise the bar on road safety in our industry and awareness of it, and provide some momentum for new driving instructors to make sure that's part of our role and part of our job and all that kind of stuff. And it's the debate around it rather than the concept of it that gets me frustrated. And just probably a Facebook thing as well, I guess. In Facebook and driving instructors, we deal in absolutes. Like, this is a brilliant idea, or this is a crap idea. And that's just been terribly tedious to watch. I found this year. That's why it made my most disappointing things list.
I think I agree. And I look at it from my perspective, it's like, I did an episode on it because I was doing a series on road safety. I wanted to find out more about this graduate driving lesson. Do the episode out, people can consume it. Every now and again, we touch back on it. So like when the RAC and the AA put their proposals out, I think me and Chris spoke about it for about 5 minutes on that green room. So for me, it's something that I really keep on the peripherals because it does overlap slightly into what we do, ever so slightly. But I want to touch on the other thing you said just briefly as well, the top 10 thing, because I know I've covered that before on my learner podcasts, but I always do it in what's the reason behind it. But the interesting thing for me this year was I put a post up, I think it was on LinkedIn, talking about should we be releasing the top 10 reasons people die rather than the top 10 fails. And the comments from some instructors from that were absolutely fascinated in a negative fashion. No, there was one person that wanted me to put a percentage of responsibility that instructors have when someone dies in a car crash. I'm like, how can I put a percentage of responsibility on that? And then someone else come back as 0. We have no response, and it was just these fascinating comments to us talking about the reasons people die. So yes, I get that one. I fully embrace, and I think I'm with you on the other one more than I probably realised, to be honest with you.
I think we've got to be careful when, obviously, we're all fortunate we have platforms where we can put across points of view like this, but we always have to bear in mind that the vast majority of driving instructors in the industry already think that the DVSA are out to get them in terms of blaming them for road deaths and crashes. And then the last thing is you need is the so-called industry leaders and trainers coming after them as well, isn't it? Yeah. So now everyone's finished coming at me for putting stuff on about the DVSA and ADI trainers and GDL and top 10 reasons people fail. Well, we'll move on to my disappointing thing in the industry. And it's not this podcast. It's somewhat a little different because I listened back recently to the year in review from last year. And I was so positive about this year, about the content that was coming about and about the things that people were doing, as in trainers and that ilk, and what was coming out. And I've not been impressed with so much. There's so much crap out there and nonsense. And I think this year it was almost like I wanted people to take the bull by the horns. And I don't think people have. And I've mentioned people already like Inspiring Instructor Training and Kit, and I realise I run the risk here of by not saying someone, I'm labelling someone, and that's not my intention. But I think there's just been so much I've not been impressed with this year in the amount of standards check training going on. I think is the biggest. It seems to have grown again. I go back to what you kind of gave me some praise before, Sean. I appreciated it. But I mentioned at that point about, why I did this podcast because of all the standards check stuff that was out there. And that's almost all it was. And then kind of rolling into this year, and I look at things like the ADI Walkback and Theory Test Explained and Grade A course and Bright Coaching and what's yours called, Tom, on YouTube? 10-minute takeaways. This kind of stuff that's very, very little to do with the standards check, if at all. And that's what got me excited for this year. And it feels like there's been a massive influx again. And I'm just seeing this thing again where we've got all this standards check stuff coming out with hundreds of people attending it. And then they're learning how to pass the standards check. They're not learning about the behavioural change. They're not learning about the mindfulness aspect or whatever. And I appreciate some of it's probably labelled standards check to get people in, and then they teach other stuff as well. But I'm not even a fan of that. And this is your thing. I'm guilty of this as well. It's not me slagging everyone else off. I started a 9-month standards check course for my premium membership this year. Now, thankfully, it died on its ass because that's not what people want from my premium membership. So I'm really glad it died, and then I was able to change it and take it off into something else. But I even did that this year, and I don't know why. I think it's because everyone was banging on about the standards check because they were coming back in March or April, whatever it was. That's been my biggest disappointment. The fact that I was excited at the end. It goes back to what we were saying before, Chris. I was expecting something that I didn't get. I got my hopes up that we're going to see this influx of new awesome content, and what we get was just a load of stuff about the standards check again. And again, I'm not pinpointing an individual, and I don't blame anyone for doing that. Anyone that has done that, including me. But yeah, that was my annoyance and disappointment and frustration and grievance, and yeah, not good, not happy with that one. Ooh. Quarter four was fun. Quarter four, we had the oh dear me. Sorry, I've just read the first thing I've got noted down for quarter four. Quarter four had the RAC and the AA release of GDL proposals backed by the Forget-Me-Not families. What comes to you for that one, Stuart? The DIA conference was in quarter four. The one show exposed 5-day driving school.
Loveday and Lillian Greenwood appear at the Transport Select Committee. That was fun. The DVS say 7-point plan to reduce waiting times, with the first one, oh God, I'm getting political. With the first one being to recruit more examiners, which we've been doing for the last year. So your first point of something you're going to do is something you apparently have been doing, therefore you can't add it to your list. That's like making a to-do list and putting it at the top of the to-do list, right to-do list, and then ticking off to make it look like you've done something. I'm sorry, it annoys me. That's my big disappointment from this year. Road Safety Week was in the final quarter of the year where driving instructors raised over £1,700, which I was really pleased with. And lastly, the most amusing thing I think that happened in quarter 4 was Chris, me and you spent a lot of time praising Louise Hay on the green room for her comments around road death. The next day, Louise promptly resigned. So for this one, I'm going to go around you all and I'm going to ask you if you've got any thoughts, anything that happened on quarter 4 or anything I missed or anything you want to mention throughout the year. So we'll come to you, Stuart, because I did start on the GDL stuff. Anything you want to mention from quarter 4 or reflect on or throughout the year that I may have missed?
Sorry, you caught me out there because I thought you weren't coming to me. I thought Lillian Greenwood was good at the expo, and I think I believe her, and I'm running the risk of being as naive as Chris clearly is, but which we're all guilty of. I believe her that she wants to do better. I believe that she wants to do better than the last government because that you have to believe that. But I think I've not met many politicians, but when I met her at the expo, I liked her. I believed what she was saying. She stayed behind after so if you weren't there, Lillian Greenwood spoke. I actually missed her talk because I was double billed with her in another room, thanks Richard Stoss. I ran through, caught the end of it, and then she sat down, and then Loveday Ryder stood up, and she stayed. Like after all the quick Q&A had finished and all that kind of stuff was gone, she stayed and very quickly became surrounded by a little pack of angry driving instructors. And Lynn Barry was kind of giving me the eye, saying, we've got to get these guys out of here because it's going to be a lynch mob. Myself and Peter Harvey ended up kind of escorting Loveday out of the building, but Lillian Greenwood handled it brilliantly. Like driving instructors who were like really distressed, like really to the point of like, this is keeping me up at night. This is causing like real mental challenges with my job. It's been the most stressful time I can remember having in my 20 years of being a driving instructor, and they were like going at it with Lillian Greenwood, and just the way she handled it, it was not BS, it was straight up, committed. So I believed it. So that was nice. I thought Lillian Greenwood came across really well on the transport select committee as well, because I missed her at the expo because I was watching your talk, which, by the way, you were double billed with Lillian, but you also filled the room, which is quite impressive. But I thought she came across really well on the transport select committee, and Loveday did not. Did you? I'm presuming you managed to catch that. I wondered what your thoughts were on that. I think the thing that stood out for me was, I'm just reading what Les wrote, Lillian Greenwood's definitely holding Loveday Ryder to account. The sense was that they were backing her, from what I could see. I forget the other lady's name, but she's from DFT. But they seemed to me to be quite supportive of Loveday to an extent that surprised me. New government, you think this is your opportunity to kind of say, right, we're changing things, boom, out we go. Lynn Barry was convinced that Loveday was toast. And that's what we were kind of watching for her being thrown. We were looking out for her being thrown to the wolves on the Transport Select Committee. And yeah, that was it became quite clear that they were backing her. Now, whether that means anything, whether it's like the chairman saying, the manager's got the full backing of the board and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. But yeah, that was what stood out for me.
Chris, do you have any thoughts or anything you want to comment on from quarter 4, or indeed the year just gone?
I thought it was very sad in the inquiry that the most standout comment was the activities that had been performed in the back of a driving test. Which kind of overshadowed a lot of the important stuff, to be honest. It's horrific. I'm not condoning any of that, but it was kind of, that's what a lot of people were talking about instead of the important stuff. We'll wait to see if anything happens. See if there's any changes. I don't know. But yeah, I think I still have this annoying optimism that there might actually be because something's got to. at some point it's going to break enough that someone's got to fix it, surely. Surely we're at that point. But then I wonder if we are. And we just keep trundling along and, abusing pink badges and ignoring the fact that we're handing, 80 learners a year to a PDI, putting them at risk, and that gets ignored because it's okay because everyone's got to start somewhere without any regulation or oversight on what training's being delivered. All of those things. But for some reason, I'm become the eternal optimist again. Why I have to come here and have a rant every now and again?
Well, I do just want to ask you a little bit about the DIA conference, because I didn't attend that, but I know you did, and that was in Q4. So just want to tell us a little bit about how that was.
I ended up being a speaker. I was told 2 hours before it happened, and I was told that I needed to talk about what Sean was talking about. I didn't know what Sean was talking about. I was quite happy at my performance because I figured it out from my chair to the podium. That's where I fitted in the word juxtaposition, which I thought was quite good. Nothing else mattered. No, and it was really good. What I like, the reason I'm a member of 3 associations, is that they all bring something different, and there's a different approach, and I like that. I think, I'll come on to the milestone project later, but I think, DIA are doing some really interesting stuff. Carly was at the inquiry, talking on behalf of instructors, and I think she does it well. I think it was a shame that we didn't have more representation there, but, they can only have so many people. But at least with Carly, no one else gets a word in. Yeah, you can't stop that woman talking.
Maybe that's why the PCS lady felt a need to talk about masturbation, just to Carly to stop talking.
Oh, just to clarify for anyone that doesn't know, I think there's 2 things I need to clarify. The masturbation reference is to what was happening in the back of the car on a test, and Carly Brookfield of the DIA. And those 2 aren't related, just to clarify. I realised that
we're thinking about is about
as you juxtaposition. Great.
But yeah, I know it was a very nicely done day. There was a bit of a workshop-y thing going on with all the tables getting together, thinking about what they would change in an ideal world with training, with testing and post-test. And I thought that was a nice moment from it. And then the individual kind of workshops or individual speakers in separate rooms at the end was very DVSA heavy. So they turned out in force, but it was all good, and they took a bit of heckling, which I thought was good of them. I bit my tongue a little bit, but they did take a bit of heckling, and they were all quite engaging and on form. So yeah, no, I thought it was a really nicely done event. They did a great job. It's sort of like all these things. You've got to go along to appreciate what was good about it. Otherwise, it just sounds like you're going and listening to loads of people talking at you about what everyone else talks about. But it's...
I have very good things about it with people I spoke to.
It's a good point that though, there, Kristen. I'm sure you've made several tonight, but that one in particular, because I think sometimes when we do talk about this stuff, because obviously we spoke about the convention earlier, I said that was my favourite CPD of the year. I'd imagine a lot of people hearing me talk about that won't sound appealing to the way I describe it, but it's the things that appeal to me. So I think I will just chip in at this point and say that anything like that, just pick something. I'll have a page up on the Instructor Podcast website soon, with all the events coming up for 2025. So when that's up, it'll be on social and stuff. Go and check what's coming up and pick 1 or 2 things that you want to attend this year, and ideally maybe something that you haven't attended before. So you can go and try this new thing out. And the absolute worst that's going to happen is you won't enjoy it, and then you'll know not to go again. So just a little thing for you all there. And just to recite Gary's comment, Gary said, "Do you like the DIA stall selling paper diaries and baseball caps?" And I'm going to leave that there. And I'm going to come on to Tom and ask you, have you got any thoughts from anything that happened in the final quarter of 2024, or indeed the year just gone?
Yeah, agreed with what's already been said. I think Lillian Greenwood's got some enthusiasm, and I think that's good. How far it will go, only time will tell. Although my most memorable thing as we've been talking through it was actually a comment at the expo when DVSA were talking. Amanda Lane was there, who's I think chief driving examiner at the moment. And somebody asked a question about when on driving lessons, what pupils should do if they stop at a zebra crossing and there's somebody halfway across. And Amanda's comment was, well, it's not black and white. And I just thought that was an amazing thing to say. And she did it with such a straight face, whether she knew she was making a joke or not, I don't know. But yeah, for me, it was just the highlight of my year.
I thought you were going to say the question about the 6-point check. I thought that was good.
Yeah, I was going to leave that because I thought we'd already yabbered on about that when we spoke on a podcast after. But yes, that was probably my second, because my poker face came through at that point.
It didn't. It really didn't.
Yeah, no, sorry. It should have, but it didn't.
All right, well, I'm going to keep with you, Tom. What is exciting you about 2025?
I think all of the things that we've said, really, all the stuff that you do throughout the year, Terry, I think is always really good. There's just so much to be positive about, and I try and look at all of the positives, even though there are negatives about. I think we're in a good place at the moment. I don't think it's the best place the industry could be, and I think there are huge improvements that can be made, but we're all in a position to be able to make a difference. And I think if we can keep that momentum going, I don't think we're going to have to wait for DVSA to pull out all the stops. I think we can, especially as associations, we can pull together and be above them. And I think that for me would be an ideal situation. Whether it happens in my lifetime, I don't know, we'll see. I've got some projects coming up next year that I'm very excited about. And I'm excited to see what everyone else will be doing as well, because I think 2025 should be a good year. I'm going to use Chris's optimism here and think of all the good things. I just hope next year, if I'm invited back on, I don't see all the negative stuff that didn't happen. So we'll see. Time will tell.
I had that exact optimism this time last year, and I am now a miserable sod. So hopefully it comes through, and I can be proved wrong and you can be proved correct. Stewart, what's exciting you about 2025? I still can't get my head around 2025.
Well, it's come back to Gary's DIA baseball caps. I didn't know the DIA did baseball caps. Maybe the NGC should have baseball caps. But I have a new hat at the NGC, which I'm very excited about. So looking forward to getting to work with the guys on the governing committee. Looking forward to attending NASP meetings, I think.
I'm just going to interject, because I did mention at the start of the show, but just tell us what your new hat is.
So my new hat is chairman of the ADI NGC. I'm actually acting chairman. The previous chairman, Charles Moffat, has had to stand down due to some health issues, unfortunately. So obviously we wish him the best in his ongoing kind of struggles with that, and wish him all the best for that going into 2025. But I've been asked to stand up as acting chair until the next AGM, which is in June 2025. Yep. So yeah, looking forward to getting to work with the governing committee and attending the NASP meetings. Just going back to some of the stuff that Chris has mentioned earlier on about, we're always full of optimism and we can change things, and then we get slapped in the face and we feel rubbish, and then we go up and do it again. This is the job, isn't it? This is the job. If we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. Maybe that's been a bit arrogant or self-aggrandizing, but I'm looking forward to going to NAS meetings and being able to kind of put my points of view across, and ask questions. Just ask questions about the GDE, challenge them on the qualification process for PDIs, all the stuff that we talk about on a regular basis. I'd like to bring my views on that into NASP, which are, I don't know, arguably maybe a bit more forthright and a bit more forward than has been in the past. I don't know, but that's what I'm looking forward to. We have cohort, I didn't plug myself very well earlier on, so I'm going to do it now. We have cohort 4 of Bright Coaching starting in March 2025. That's an in-person cohort. And actually I'll be getting back into the driving school as well. The driving school is what pays the mortgage at the end of the day, and getting back to training PDIs more than I was last year. I was out of that business because of Bright Coaching to a great extent. But yeah, going back into that, spending a bit more time working with Andy McFarlane, who you guys know. Yeah, and just, yeah, I'm always positive going into the new year. So yeah, all that good stuff.
And Chris, what's exciting you about 2025?
I'm waiting to learn why, if you're the chairman, you have to stand up. Surely you can sit down. Anyway, so yeah, no, I want to know what I don't know yet. That's my thing. I don't like planning. Terry knows that. I don't want to know the questions before I turn up. I want to be surprised. I like magic, and I think that spills out into the other stuff. So anyone listening, bring it on.
Have you done a Rubik's Cube tonight?
No, I haven't, because Kaz stole it. And we it's over there. I can do it for the last section if you want.
It's just, for those that aren't aware, I often bore Chris that much he has to do a Rubik's Cube during the show just to keep himself amused.
It helps my brain work, that's all. It's, yeah.
The thing I'm looking forward to 2025 is a very personal thing, because I don't have the same optimism as I did last year, and hopefully there we go. Hopefully I'm proved wrong, because in February I have been asked to be part of a panel that is going to go around schools around the UK and basically talk to almost like a question time style event that is going to be for people in sort of sixth form around that age. And I think that's just awesome from a number of reasons. So first of all, I'll be on it, but there will be other people there whose names start with words like professor and doctor. And obviously mine doesn't. So slightly intimidating, but I think that's awesome for two reasons. One, go back to what we've spoken about several times throughout this episode, in that it's bridging the gap between the road driving instructors and the road safety industry. How awesome is it that driving instructors are asked to be represented in this? And just to clarify, the one in February is confirmed. It's two in February, sorry, they're confirmed. And they're hoping to make them bi-monthly going forward for the next 4 years. And I hopefully will be on them all. So it's awesome that driving instructors, but also from a personal perspective, I'm just genuinely all at moon with that. It's just lovely that someone thinks I've got something clever enough to say to warrant that, because I feel that one of the things that stood out for me a little bit this year is I think that I've seen what, I can't know how to phrase this because I don't want it to sound negative. I've seen what a lot of people think of me within the industry, and it's not necessarily someone that's got something to say. It's often the facilitator role, which is the role I play, and that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that, but this will be a slightly different role, and it's nice to see someone that sees that I've got something to say and wants to bring that out. So yeah, I'm really, really, that's the thing I'm most excited about for next year. So very, very much looking forward to that. That's what I'm positive and excited and optimistic about next year. That's going to be fun. But the other thing that I want you guys to do, I've asked everyone, we did this last year and I'm going to continue doing it. It's the Instructor Podcast Awards. So I've asked you all to think of someone, or maybe more than one if you're struggling, of who you can give an award to and why you would be giving them that award. So I'm going to continue with you, Chris, first on this one, whilst you're testing your brain with your Rubik's Cube. That it'll be done in about 7 seconds, I'm sure. Who are you giving an award to this year, and what is that award and why?
So I was trying to figure out what to call the award. So, because I'm being optimistic. So the award for actual potential for change in the future, that's what I'm going with. Genuine potential for change in the future. And we've mentioned it a couple of times. Stewart mentioned it earlier, and so did I, is the Milestones project from DIA. It's a project that involves... Did you want to do a drum roll before I announced it? Sorry, I just jumped in. But it's a project that involves e-learning, involves a modular structure, and I think it has potential it's being done properly as well, because it's a funded project and the study is being done correctly with various different approaches that I don't understand because I'm not a scientific person. So, but they're doing it properly, and there's the potential for real change in the future, whether it is actually the modules that they have, but it's opening a door to look at that modular and the kind of multimodal approach between the e-learning and the in-car stuff. And I will just correct Stewart, because I don't want it to come back and bite me. I've had nothing to do with it for the same reason that he hasn't. I haven't got anyone, in a car. I haven't got a car. So I'm just a big supporter. So I think it could be a really good thing. I would love to be more involved with it. I have been shouting about it to my driving school and encouraging them to do it. And I suggest everybody else has a look, because it's got potential for some really good stuff. And I hope that end of next year, Well, it'd probably be the one after because it's a proper thing with the government, isn't it? It'll take forever for us to get results. We're still waiting on 2020. So, yeah, I hope that there's going to be some really positive things coming out of that. So if you haven't seen it, the website's pretty good. It explains it. It's got a video and everything.
I'll include links in the show notes because, again, this is something that I'm, going back to what I said I wasn't excited about before. I'm excited about. There you go. Chris has completed his Rubik's Cube. I think that it's a great project. I think it's something that instructors can get involved in more than the GDL, as you were saying, Stuart, definitely. And I'm not involved and I won't be. I think I've got enough on my plate at the minute, if I'm being completely honest with that one. But I am hoping to get someone on to speak about it for the next edition of Driving Instructors Division 0. So if you're not subscribed to that podcast, go and click subscribe. The next edition, that'll be on February the 1st. I'm hoping that we'll get that for then or for the March the 1st one. But yeah, I think that is a great shout, Chris. Well, let's come to you next, Tom. Who's your award for? Have you got a name for it? And why are you giving it to him?
No, I don't have a name for it. Last year, I nominated a friend and colleague, Jim, because he was sort of still relatively new to the industry. And I'd like to go along the same sort of theme for some friends and colleagues of mine, Vic and Kim from Gates and Gibson, because although kind of business management has been around in our industry and there's been lots of good people delivering courses, I do feel like they've pushed it a little bit more. And I think it has been missed generally with PDIs and ADIs coming in, because there's been lots of people who haven't been self-employed. They've not run their own business and they've not had the idea of how to do it. And perhaps some of the bigger schools have avoided that because they don't want the instructors to be on their own. They want to be supportive. And, I think that's good and bad. But I'd like to see them awarded for trying to push further ahead with why looking after our businesses is so important, because it is ultimately important for us as self-employed business owners to make sure that we get to keep paying the mortgage or paying off the mortgage. Yeah, that's where I would go with it this year.
I think that's an excellent shout. I've been really impressed with Gates and Gibson this year, and I think I've only really come across them this year. I think it was you that actually introduced me to them, Tom. But they came on the premium membership. We did an episode on the top 5 business tips, and it was one of the best, but also one of the most chaotic episodes I've done this year. It was so much fun. And I think it was Vicky that went on the Inspire podcast recently when they did their business roundtable. And it was interesting hearing their thoughts and go back to what I said before, complaining about the standard check stuff that's come out this year. They don't do standard check stuff. So they do stuff that's relevant and matters to running a business. So another excellent shout. So we're going to come to you next, Stuart. Who's the reward for? Is there a name for it? And why are you giving it to them?
Yeah, I have 2 awards. The first one is for Phil Cowley and Diana Todd for their Zoom workshop on menopause and subsequently the group that they set up. I thought this was particularly good to give this award, given what we were saying about how the 4 of us tonight are so diverse. It would be a good shout. I just think it's such a really good thing to talk about in the industry. It's the kind of thing, and my next award comes under this as well. It's the kind of thing that if we were employed by really amazing employers, really progressive, forward-thinking employers who cared about us and our well-being, that's the kind of thing that we would have. So that's awesome. So that's the award for mainstreaming menopause. That's what that's called, mainstreaming menopause. And the second award, I'm going to make you blush, Chris, is for you for ADI Walkback. Because in the same vein, if we worked for larger organisations, our health and well-being is something that forward-thinking, progressive employers would be doing for us. They'd be looking after us. And I think you just deserve a lot of credit for doing it. You know that Andy's been doing the Glasgow Walkback, and he does it every month. It's just such a good thing. I've missed a couple because I tended, on the subject of mental health, I was going and there was about 10 of our PDIs there just banging on at me all the time for an hour. So that's not why I'm going. But I think it's awesome. So you get the award for mainstreaming movement.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
I almost hope none of your PDIs are listening, Stuart. I'll be honest.
I love them all. But I don't go on ADI Walkback to do training. That's why I train them.
Another two great awards, actually, and obviously the one for Chris Nader. I don't need to give you any more praise tonight, Chris. I've given you enough, but I stand by that. I think it's, as I said at the start of the show, it's I think it's one of the few things in our industry that gets put out there and no one complains about. I think I've got a slightly different opinion to you. I think I'm a little bit resentful, and I think more people should embrace it. I dropped off the second half of this year because of the health stuff I spoke about earlier, but I know it's there for when people need it, but I think that it's something that can help going forward rather than wait until there's a problem. Embrace it now. Don't wait until your head hurts. Stop your head hurting. But I also think the menopause one is a great shout, and I'm glad you've done that, partly because I think it's a great award, and partly because Phil asked me to give some feedback on the episode and I forgot, so this will help me remind me when I do the edit. So thank you for that. But I will give my award out, and I'm calling my award the most well-known unknown person in the industry. So I'm giving my award to Rachel Butler, because I think she knows every driving instructor in our industry, but is not known publicly. And I think she's someone that does such an amazing job at what she does, and is largely unrecognised in that sense in a lot of the smooth running she does. And the way, in the nicest possible way, she has like the silver tongue of John Sheridan. And you can butter anyone up. And well, there you go. I'll be honest, when they did the PDI booklet that I wrote a column for, or an article for, and then at the back they put all the training resources and didn't include the Instructor Podcast on there, I dropped her a voice note that morning at about 5 a.m. And she got back to me next day. She said, "Oh, sorry, didn't realise." And I felt like a million bucks after she got back to me. She'd made me feel like the world was okay again. So I think she's awesome in that sense. But I also do want to drop a little personal note in that she also looked after me as well. So little things like the convention was like, "Terry, I'm going to sit you next to me because I know you're an introvert and I'm going to look after you all." And, it was that kind of thing. And she checks in on me and stuff like that as well. So a little personal note as well. But Rachel Butler, the most well-known, unknown person in our industry. So that wraps up today. I want to take a moment to thank the guys that have come along to watch live. Always appreciate that. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Free, for turning up. Not the most diverse group in the world, although we are representing a large part of the country. With Chris, you're doing the South. Stewart, you're doing the North. Tom's kind of the Midlands, and I'm going to repeat this joke. I'm a bit of the special boy, so we'll go with that. But do you want to take a moment to just tell us what you are from where people can find you? Because despite Stewart mentioning it earlier, I will give you opportunity to plug yourselves. Stewart, what do you offer from where people can find you?
Brightcoaching.net, cohort 4, Bright Coaching qualification starts in March 2025. Hope to see you there.
Tom, what do you offer and where can people find you?
You can find me at audittrainer.com. I'm based in the Midlands in a lovely place called Malvern, which is hilly and great for mountain bikes, especially if you've got a motor. And you can so you can find me there, and I deliver everything from training PDIs to train the trainer courses as well.
And you can also find Tom on the Instructor Podcast Premium doing tomorrow's lessons. And what are we covering next year? What was it we're covering? I've forgotten. It was the National Driver and Rider Standards.
Yeah.
Yep. We're working for that, which is going to be fun. And last, but by no means least, Chris, do you want to remind everyone where they can find you and what you have to offer?
When you can't find me on the ADI Walkback, I'm doing theory test training for anyone who wants it. And so Theory Test Explained, doing theory test training, and through the ditc.co.uk, which is signposting platform for the industry, just looking to support driving instructors doing what driving instructors do.
And you can also find Chris on the Chris Bensted podcast. So all that's left for me to say is hope you guys have had a good 2024, and I hope you have an awesome 2025. And speaking of 2025, let's keep raising standards.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.